goodness. Good morning, ladies. Good morning. So let's do us some Firearms Friday. Oh. Well, sorry about that. Okay. So the intro ran out while I was trying to read something. All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's Firearms Friday. We're going to do some DGUs. There is something else that I want to do first. Cindy D, I see that you're watching on YouTube. AC and I had a long conversation yesterday and talked about how exactly we're going to make this thing work. There's a bit of a learning curve there. So I'm working on that. And I would like, Cindy, if you could, pop over to Rumble and watch the show on Rumble this morning. And let me see if I can make this work. I think I got to hit a button here. Nope, that's not it. That's not it. I think you have to be in the thing. Let's see. I'm going to gift Sergeant Major. I'm going to attempt to gift Sergeant Major. No, that's a channel subscription. Okay, I gotta do a little learning on that. So it's not as clear as I would like it to be. Yeah, Dad, I know you already have premium, so I'll give it to somebody else. Looks okay. The way I'm reading it right now, it looks like here. Let me share this. No, not that. Not that one. That one. Nope. I'm not gonna share that because that shows personal information. Well, damn. Okay, so Here we go. I can share that. So from here, it looks like the basic setup. If I do a gifted sub, it's just I buy a bunch of gifted subs and they're randomly distributed. So this one, okay, I know we've got dead air right now, and I apologize for that. I'm working on that. Well, damn! I thought I was about to do something really cool and give one of you guys a premium account for a year. Okay. So, Cindy D, I need you to get over onto Rumble into the chat. At the wheel says, "Kill the dead air with song. Sing to us." Et homo factus est and was made man, and you became a man. So, I tell you what, I will have this figured out before we start the premium only show tomorrow. So, Cindy, make sure you're there. Make sure you're watching from Rumble, and that's how we'll make that happen. Oh, the shark has got such teeth, babe, and he shows them, pearly whites. Just a jackknife has old MacHeath, babe, and he keeps it out of sight. So, first story this morning is not a DGU, it is a gun news story. Iowa lowers legal age for handgun ownership to 18. Governor Kim Reynolds has signed a bill lowering the legal age to own and carry a handgun in Iowa to 18, effective July 1st. The law is being praised by Second Amendment advocates and criticized by those concerned about youth and gun safety. I have a criticism, in fact. Here's my concern. If you are making a law to lower the age of firearms ownership, that means that your law is already in violation of the Second Amendment, right? So look at that headline. Lowers age for handgun ownership to 18. And I know, nationwide, most states, if you can carry a gun at all, you have to be 21 to conceal carry a firearm. Now, I'm not sitting here advocating to arm the children, at least not in this particular context. But let me remind you that all gun laws, without exception, are offensive to the Constitution. The Second Amendment says, shall not be infringed. That means that there shall be no law at all, which is related to gun ownership or the carrying of a knife or a sword or a pair of nunchucks. Laws that involve arms are themselves unlawful. Shall not be infringed. Infringed, the word does not mean to block, to get in the way of. It means to be adjacent to be related to. Right? The tassels on a Western jacket are not the jacket. They are the fringe. They are an infringement of the jacket. But I'll grant that this reads as a step in the right direction. So, starting July 1st, 18-year-olds in Iowa will legally be allowed to own and carry handguns following the passage of a new law signed by Governor Kim Reynolds. Oh, excuse me. The legislation permits young adults to possess pistols, revolvers, and ammunition, extending rights they already had for owning long guns like rifles and shotguns. Supporters of the new law argue that age-based restrictions on handgun ownership were unfair and discriminatory. They're not unfair and discriminatory. They're illegal. They're unconstitutional. They're an abomination in a free country. They assert that if 18-year-olds can vote, join the military, and be held fully accountable under the law, they should also be trusted with the constitutional right to bear arms. That is true. That is absolutely clearly true. In fact, I'd go a step further and say that if there is to be an age restriction, right? If there's to be an age restriction of any kind at all, then it should be uniform. Right now, you get your driver's license at 16, then you can vote and join the military and buy the P word and cigarettes at 18. You start betting on horse races at 19, start drinking liquor at 21, and you can rent a car at 25. So, and you're on your parents' insurance till you're 25. So in America today, you are not an adult. You're not an adult until you're 25 years old. Okay. Let's say that there's a reasonable argument. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that there's a good argument to be made for the number 25, because that's the last one, right? You got to be 32 to run for. Is it 30? I think it's 32 to run for president, right? So there's some cutoffs for requirements to run for office. And I think we can make a good argument that those could be separated from your other legal rights, because that's more to do with your life experience, right? It's one thing to say that an 18-year-old can be trusted to begin his life professionally as an adult, get married, start having kids, buy a house, et cetera, et cetera. It is quite another to say that he has the intellectual, professional, political, and other various attainders necessary to do the work in a political office, right? Of course, maybe the correct answer there is to have a certain number of years of experience in some related field, something like that. So we set those aside, just go with 25, right? 25 is the last big cutoff where now you can rent a car. And to be clear, that's not so much a function of law. That is, insurance companies just won't allow car rental companies to rent to people under the age of 25. If the rental company doesn't exclude you under the age of 25, then they can't get their business insured. So that is a slightly different issue. But let's go with 21 then, right? Okay. So let's say there's a good argument that 21 is the age at which you become an adult. Then we'll move everything up to that. You can't vote. You can't join the military, right? You're not, when you're at 21, you're an adult and you get all your rights. Or at 18, you're an adult and you bring, firearms ownership, purchasing alcohol, you bring everything else down to 18. My point being, if we're going to make the argument that there is an age at which you are legally an adult, then that age needs to be a single age. and we should choose that. Now, personally, I'd be okay with people needing to be a year or 3 older to join the military, to vote, etc. That said, if we're going to be stripping rights from people based on their age, then we have a problem in this country, because we have a lot of deadbeat parents that are not still raising their children at the age of 18 or the age of 21. If they're not adults until they reach that certain age, then mommy and daddy need to have a little more influence. And there's another problem that raises another problem. Our law, our government at present, does do a great deal to harm the authority of parents over their children. And again, I'm not going to sit here and make an argument for child abuse, but y'all, sometimes a youngin' needs a spanking. Sometimes a youngin' needs a spanking. Right? Now, around my house, discipline, we normally handle it with push-ups or teacups, right? If you're not familiar with teacups, that's the one where you hold your rifle up by the front sight post and the extended charging handle, and you just stand and hold it for a while. That's tough. Squats, right? Spankings. I'm not opposed, but we normally reserve those to enforce safety concerns, right? I catch one of the kids hitting one of the other kids with an object. That's a guaranteed ass whooping. Guaranteed. That is a lesson that must be learned with pain, with immediate pain, not just muscle tension. Okay, knock them out, right? But I guess I applaud Iowa, but for doing the right thing. But let's not get confused here. The right thing that they're doing is correcting a long-standing injustice, a long-standing violation of the rule of law. So I think we beat that horse enough that I'm going to start to speak circularly on it if I don't move on to the next one. So let's go ahead and get into the next story, which is a DGU. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to drop one DGU and move on to the next one. First DGU didn't want to display correctly, so we're going to do this one. Tucson man fatally shot after allegedly assaulting store employee. This one is from earlier this week. So, Tucson man fatally shot after allegedly assaulting store employee. A fatal shooting occurred Friday evening in Tucson, Arizona, after a reported physical altercation between store employee and customer. The incident unfolded around 6 p.m. in the 900 block of West Irvington Road, where 39-year-old Michael Alex Montano Mendoza was shot and killed. Wow, I wonder if he had a passport. Following what police say was an assault on the 24-year-old store employee. According to the Tucson Police Department, Mendoza entered the business and later moved into the parking lot with the employee. It was there that the alleged assault occurred. Investigators say the employee fired his firearm in response to the attack, striking Mendoza. Despite attempts at life-saving measures, Mendoza was pronounced dead at the scene. That's a DRT, guys. Dead right there. The employee, whose identity has not been publicly released, sustained minor injuries and was treated at a local hospital. After the incident, he called 911 to report the shooting and remained at the scene. No charges have been filed at this time, but the case has been handed over to the Pima County Attorney's Office for further review. And then it says, understanding Arizona self-defense law is a stand your ground state, which means individuals are not required to retreat before using force if they are legally allowed to be in the location and reasonably believe force is necessary to prevent death or serious harm. And that's a key there too. It's not just I'm afraid that I'm going to die. You're allowed to defend yourself from having your arms and legs removed or or broken, right? Just being hurt badly. Oh, and then the other piece of this is it's a little unclear on how the altercation actually went. It was there that the alleged assault occurred. It doesn't go into much detail about what the assault looked like. I think it's reasonable to assume that because no charges have been filed, looks like there are no charges being filed. And apparently the kid, the 24-year-old, right, the guy hung out after it went down. Sergeant Major asks, how about defending other people? That's one, yes, the law provides for that to an extent. And in my personal opinion, I would rather be judged by 12 than even watch someone be carried by 6 if I could have anything to do with it. If I can step in and save a life, then I will stand in front of my peers and make the argument for saving that life. I've saved lives before, and if I'm presented with if I'm called upon to do it again, then I hope that I have the wherewithal and the mechanism to achieve that. So, given the limited amount of information here, I can only make the assumption that the assault was sufficiently aggressive to justify the self-defense. And that brings me to the next point. What if this guy was not armed, was not prepared to defend himself, right? And the assailant was able to just continue without the interruption, without the intervention of the armed defensive act. Maybe there's a case to be made that they could have both survived the incident, but the reasonable assumption to be made here is that without the fatal intervention of the defensive gun use, that the victim would have been harmed more. And to be very clear on this, when you're talking about someone who is attacking, who is assaulting the person, right? When you have a victim who's being bodily injured, no amount of injury is justifiable by saying, well, at least the bad guy didn't die. Right? Essentially, what I'm getting at is once you have made the evil choice to cause harm to another person without good cause, right? Defending yourself, your property, your family, other people, that's good cause. Defending the Constitution, in my opinion, is good cause, right? But once you've decided to cause harm to someone without good cause, your life is forfeit. You have chosen. You have made your choice. And whatever the consequences of that may be, those are yours. You chose them. Right. So let's move on to this next one. I think I've got 2 more, and then we'll wrap this one up. Pregnant Tennessee woman fatally shoots abuser in self-defense confirmed. Crockett County, Tennessee. A domestic violence incident in Crockett County has been officially ruled an act of self-defense, and no charges will be filed against a pregnant woman who fatally shot her abusive partner. The shooting occurred on Thursday, April 17th. Okay, so this is a little over a week old. In the 6,000 block of Chestnut Bluff, Maury City Road, authorities say 32-year-old John King III was shot and killed during a violent domestic altercation. The woman was 6 months pregnant at the time, had 2 other children present in the home when the incident occurred. Early reports indicate a domestic dispute turned violent, with King allegedly assaulting the woman with a knife, a pistol, and by strangulation. Jesus! In response, she used a firearm to defend herself and her children. On April 18th, the sheriff's department stated the incident was being investigated as domestic violence related. Now, with the investigation complete, District Attorney General Frederick Agee confirmed on Wednesday that no charges would be filed. She had no other choice to defend herself. That is why people have guns, said Agee. In this case, she used her firearm appropriately to defend not only herself, but her children. Yeah. Not only herself, but her children. Yeah. Guaranteed. Put me in a position where I'm concerned for my life and safety, and there is a very high probability that I will draw a firearm and solve that concern real quick, right? If my kids are also at threat, son, pray that I am armed. Pray that I have a firearm. You don't want to catch me there with my wife and kids, and I forgot my revolver. No. That's how you end up on the wrong side of a rear naked choke. Whew. So yeah, big cheers for Mama Bear doing the right thing. The Crockett County Sheriff's Department posted on Facebook that physical evidence confirmed the woman was assaulted in multiple ways. The statement read, Mrs. King faced multiple forms of assault, including being attacked with a knife, a pistol, and strangulation. In a desperate attempt to safeguard her life, the life of her unborn child, and the 2 children in the home, she utilized a firearm to defend herself. District Attorney Agee also revealed that the woman is a survivor of years of domestic abuse and emphasized that her actions were taken in the context of enduring long-term violence. Sheriff Troy Kleiss expressed support for the survivor and emphasized the department's commitment to protecting families and supporting victims of domestic violence. And I mean, look, that's a decent looking pick-em-up truck and a decent looking little house, right? This doesn't even look like it's some madness going on in the trashiest little ghetto, I mean, I want to assume that there's some drug or alcohol involvement for a man to go that wrong, but there's no guarantee that that's the case. And goody. And our last one this morning, we've got another domestic dispute in Sampson County ends in self-defense shooting. Sampson County, North Carolina. Deputies in Sampson County are actively investigating a domestic violence incident that escalated into a shooting early Wednesday morning. The case began unfolding after a man suffering from multiple gunshot wounds was dropped off at the emergency room of Betsy Johnson Hospital in Dunn. According to Captain Marcus Smith of the Sampson County Sheriff's Office, initial evidence points to a domestic assault that occurred wow, straight up throw the address out there. Let's just go ahead and dox the victim. What do you say? Investigators believe the shooting was a legitimate act of self-defense to prevent further harm. Authorities have yet to release the identities of those involved, and the exact circumstances that led to the gunfire remain under investigation. Well, okay, the wounded man was transferred by helicopter to North Carolina Memorial Hospital in Chapel Hill due to the severity of his injuries. At this point, his condition remains unknown. Hospital staff had immediately altered the Harnett County Communications Center. Alerted. I apologize, not altered. Alerted the Harnett County Communications Center upon the man's arrival, prompting a sheriff's deputy to respond and conduct an initial interview. Through that conversation, it was determined that the shooting had actually occurred in neighboring Sampson County. Okay, hold up. Okay, sorry about that. I had a little bout of the hiccups. I just had to get through that real quick. Well, this case still under review. It seems to fall under the legal protection. Domestic violence situations are often unpredictable and dangerous. Okay, no, we're just in the safety tips. That story is incredibly light on the details, but in fairness, it did just happen Wednesday morning. That does sound like we've got two back-to-backs, though. Ladies, if you're not armed, you're not a feminist. Okay? Keep calm and carry one. It's important. Firearms, great equalizer. It makes you, it gives you the ability to face up to a big, strong man, right? It makes it fair fight. And that's something that you just cannot discount. For if you're gonna be a feminist, then you need to carry that firearm. Okay, so y'all bear with me just a second. I am going to attempt. I'm going to attempt another thing real quick. In fact, here, y'all enjoy one of the infamous BFM shorts while I take a stab at getting this done.
In fact, you don't need 30 rounds to protect yourself.
You want us alive when they eat us.
Put that double-barrel shotgun and fired 2 blasts.
Which were then thrown at officers. Demonstrators also threw fireworks.
Telling you Molotov cocktails work. Anytime I had a problem and I threw a Molotov cocktail, boom, right away. I had a different problem.
He makes a strong case.
Boy, sure would be nice if we had some grenades, don't you think?
Modern problems require modern solutions.
All right, it's beyond me. I'm gonna have to go diving deeper into the algorithmics to figure out how to do the gifted subscriptions. So, all right, and that's it. I'm out of stories for this morning. It's Friday morning. Going into the weekend. Y'all be safe. You know, here's your safety brief: sex, drugs, rock and roll, alcohol, firearms, farm animals, and videotape. No two at the same time, guys. Right? Don't drive drunk. Don't fry bacon naked. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.